my name is Zay and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about every book that I rated 5 stars this summer. I've seen some other booktubers do these kind of videos and I just think they're really fun just to see seasonally what you rated 5 stars. In this video, I'm going to be including May into this as well, just so I can have more books to talk about and share, because I've talked about several of these books lately. So because of that, I am not going to be going into detail on those books because I talked about a lot of these books in the books I've loved this year, talking about why I gave these 5 stars instead of to detail about these books and like the plot and stuff like that. So for some of these, I will be given the plot. Some of them I probably won't. So that was long, chatty intro. Let's just get right into the video. First book is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. So I must say I have read, up until this point when I read this book, I read 2 books by Sarah Adams. First book I read by her, I didn't really love it or even like it. I thought it was fine. Liking on the name of the series is totally fine. You can read these out of order. It's just 2 books in the series so far. You can read this one without reading When in Rome. But I read When in Rome and I really liked it. So I was excited for this one, and even though I really enjoyed When in Rome, I did not give it 5 stars. So I was pleasantly surprised when I read this one and it was 5 stars. This is a bodyguard romance and it's also a small town. I love bodyguard romances, but this one is a little bit different. It's a little twist on the bodyguard aspect. So in this book, we're following Annie. Annie lives in her small town in Kentucky. She owns a flower shop and she's a hopeless romantic kind of gal, and she's having issues in the love department. She's just not having good luck and she's really struggling. So in comes our hero, who is the heroine from the first book's bodyguard. So her soon-to-be sister-in-law, because the first book follows Annie's brother and our heroine, and now, spoiler alert, in this book, they're engaged. So Will is the sexy, tattooed bodyguard, and he's temporarily back in Rome. He is providing some protection for Amelia, again, the heroine from the first book, and they actually run into each other while she's on a date with someone else, a date that does not go well. She overhears her date call her boring and stuff like that. And anyway, what ends up happening is Will ends up helping Annie out, providing her some advice and stuff like that on how to date, helping her out, giving her some tips and things like that. And of course, they end up falling in love. He's not really a damage hero, but he's definitely like a brooding hero. He definitely does not believe in love. Now, we do end up having like a fake dating kind of thing in this book too. But the reason why I ended up giving this one 5 stars is because this one just made me feel really good. It's just like a feel-good romance. It was so cute, and Will and Annie had really great chemistry. Sarah Adams mainly writes closed door romances, and even though this was closed door, I still felt like they had so much chemistry, and to the point to where if you are like an open door romance reader, you definitely would have loved to see some more of that, because that's just how good their chemistry was. As far as the books that I've read by Sarah Adams, this is definitely her best book. I just really liked it. I will say one issue that I had with Sarah Adams in the past is I felt like her main characters are kind of immature. I definitely felt like Annie was quite young. She's a virgin hero and she's just very inexperienced, and in comes this very experienced hot man. So there was a little bit of that, but it didn't bother me too much. I thought it went well with her storyline and her character, and there's definitely more to her character, and it does help to read the first book just so you can have just some kind of background on Annie and her family. Annie has a brother and then a couple sisters, and so I love that. Also, if you like Gilmore Girls, you will like this series, because the small town is definitely like nosy, in your face. They're very protective of Annie, and they're like, what are you doing with our sweet Annie? And I love that too. So this was just great. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun with these characters. It just made me feel really good. And if you just need like a pick-me-up kind of read, I think this is perfect. So next we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So this book is probably the most popular romance book that has come out this year. So I read this one right when it came out, and it definitely was super hyped even before it came out. Like, the early reviews on this book were really good, very high reviews. I have read, well, I tried to read one book by Rebecca Yarros, and y'all know I've said it, I love angsty and emotional reads. That book was actually too much for me. Like, I felt like I was going to just be so depressed after that book, and I just didn't think I was mentally ready to read that kind of book. So I have not read a Rebecca Yarros book in a long time, so I really went into this one, even though it was super hyped, I still tried to go in with like fair expectations. This is just a really fun fantasy book, easy to understand. You're kind of learning things with our main character. Heroine Violet has always wanted to do something else. She did not expect to become a dragon rider. She was supposed to join the scribe quadrant, but the general, aka her mom, had different plans for her. And she orders Violet to go to this war college to become a dragon rider. I liked this book a lot, you know. I was just in for the ride. It's a crazy book, action-packed. I think what me and everyone else loves are the dragons. I loved the dragons. I loved the kind of bond that the rider and the dragons formed together. That was really, really fun. That whole process of even getting a dragon and connecting with the dragon was really, really cool to read about. Honestly, everything about this is really cool to read about. There's definitely more to this book, more going on in this story than what I just said about Violet essentially going to this war college unexpectedly. You know, she was not preparing for this, so she's definitely at a disadvantage. She also has our hero, Xaden, who at first is definitely not a fan of her. Like I said, her mom is the general, and her mom is not very popular among some of these other dragon riders. So not only has her mom ordered her to do this and she's unprepared, but she automatically has a target on her back because of her mother. And so Xaden and our heroine have like a really fun enemies to lovers kind of thing, if you will, if you call it that. Maybe rivals. I don't know. It's not exactly enemies to lovers, but I guess that's what like tropey would put it under. I will say I want to reread this book because I did like it. At the time that I was reading this, I didn't have my physical copy and I didn't get to annotate it and stuff like that. And I really want to do that. So I'm curious to see if I would give this a higher rating or maybe a good lower rating. I'm going to reread it. I'm going to read this book and Iron Flame, and I am going to vlog it. Because I am very excited for the next book. The way this book ended on a cliffhanger was really, really good. Like, I was so sucked in at the very end of this book. Things just really got crazy, and I was just in for this ride with these dragons. The only thing that I did not really love about this book is this is, I guess, supposed to be adult fantasy, but honestly, this felt like a young adult book. And then we got to the steamy scenes and I just felt like it was misplaced. I felt like it was just put in there because that's what everyone loves right now, super steamy scenes. I did not feel that it went with the story. I think that either she could have made this new adult or young adult. This just doesn't feel like an adult fantasy book, and that aspect of the story really threw me off because up until that point, it felt like a young adult story in every way. Like, the heroine is very young, she's 20, but honestly, she's very, very naive, which I know is something that happens in these fantasy novels. They don't have all of the knowledge and education about the world and stuff like that. There's obviously more to it. They're hiding things from them and stuff like that, so they're figuring out. I understand that, but Violet felt very, very young than her age, and so that definitely threw me off because I went into this book thinking that it was an adult fantasy and it feels like YA, and then we throw in some steamy scenes and I just didn't think it went well with the story. So that's the only thing I didn't really like, but I had so much fun with this story. It's just one of those books that I just got lost in and I had so much fun with. So next we have Rootbound by Tara DeWitt. So I am a big fan of Tara DeWitt's books. I read Funny Feelings by her last year and I just fell in love with her writing. I'm such a fan, and this was the last book that I had to read by her, and then I would be all caught up, which she has 3 books out right now. This book came out on audio and I thought it was the perfect time to read it, and I'm not surprised that I ended up giving this book 5 stars because it was so good. If you like A Simple Wild, then I think you'd like this one. It's not as sad as Simple Wild. Heartfelt, heartwarming, cozy reads, which is what I think Tara mainly writes. So in this book, we're following Tate. Tate has recently gone through a divorce. Now, Tate is a photographer. She's going on an assignment, and this actually is taking place in her estranged family's home and property. So She knows this pretty much immediately, and she's definitely freaking out about it. Her and her sister Ava are both estranged from dad's side of the family and dad, and so this is taking place on their property. It's mixed emotions, but she's just like, I'm gonna go and do my job and get this over with. Now, in comes our hero, Henry. He's our very grumpy cowboy, and he does not understand the dynamic she has with her family. Like, he knows her family, he's very close with her family, and he does not understand this estrangement and their history. And so they definitely bump heads because it has taken him in and he feels like he owes them a lot. You know, his loyalty is with them. I really liked, you know, Tate reconnecting with her family, finding out what really happened. There's definitely more to the story and why they've been estranged. And, you know, this is literally about her going back home and getting back to her roots, reconnecting with her roots, reconnecting with her family, and falling in love. And this is a book that I think is just really underrated. I think that Funny Feelings is her most popular book, and that's what everyone talks about. But Rootbound is amazing, and it was her debut book. I definitely recommend it. The audiobook is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, if you like The Simple Wild, I do think that you would like Rootbound, and if you're in your cowboy era, then you definitely have to read Rootbound. So next we have Wrecked by Lauren Asher, which I've already talked about in my last video. Go check it out if you haven't watched it. It's my books I've loved this year video. Like I said, I am going to have some repeats. So Asher, before I read the fine print by her, and honestly, the fine print and Wrecked just seemed like completely different. Wrecked was very emotional. I was just emotionally connected to the story. I thought the mental health representation was really well done. I've heard that Redeemed is really good. I think that one is a fan favorite in the series, and someone commented on my last video telling me to read Redeemed. I've also heard from other people that I should read Redeemed. But yeah, Wrecked is definitely a favorite, and The Forced Proximity was chef's kiss, and this was just a really good one. Equivalent Exchange by Christina C. Jones. So Christina C. Jones is one of my favorite authors of all time. She writes Black romances, Black love, and I love her books. They just make me feel so seen and so represented, and she's also just a really great writer. She has a very big backlist. She writes a plethora of subgenres and things like that, and this one is different than anything I've read by her. Paranormal, kind of like a soulmate kind of book. This one was just so unique. In this book, we're following our hero and heroine. They meet at our hero's bar and they end up having a one-night stand. Now, when they meet, it kind of feels like they kind of feel like they've already met each other, and our hero just kind of feels like he's met the love of his life. Like, he's like, I just think I met the person that I'm supposed to be with, and which is like a crazy feeling because obviously just had a one-night stand together. Now our heroine ends up having an interview at his company and she gets the job, so they end up working together. And this book definitely has like a trigger warning because our heroine has just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and a mentally and physically abusive relationship, and so she has a lot going on. But our hero is very confident in the fact that this is the woman he's supposed to end up with, and our heroine is definitely very reluctant to accept this and understand this. Main characters are older, so it felt like a very like mature romance. What I love about Christina C. Jones is she writes the most amazing heroes, very protective. They're like obsessed with their woman. They're all about them. And she just writes very relatable heroines that are just very vulnerable and honest, and you just connect to them instantly. And so that was no different than in this book. So if you want something different, if you want something that feels like two people have met and they're soulmates, then you gotta read this one. Definitely plan on continuing in this series. Again, I've already talked about this book in my last video, is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bottom Young. Yeah, what can I say about this that I didn't say in the last video? I just love this book. So much about this book is I loved how rooted in reality it felt. You know, I like to read about obsessive heroes. I like to read about, you know, protective, domineering kind of heroes all the time. And it's like a nice little escape, a nice little fantasy. But I really love to read books like this that are kind of the kind of romances that I would actually want in real life, a hero that I want in real life. You know, Beau is a cinnamon roll hero. There's definitely more to Beau. He's not just this perfect guy. Like, he's definitely been through some things in his life, has some things that he needs to work through from his past, already dealt with stemming from their disabilities, but they have things that they've gone through in relationships that have also affected them. They had a one-night stand, they don't know each other, they end up living together, and they just decide to be friends and be partners in a very platonic way, but they have feelings for one another, but they're both really afraid to act on those feelings. And then they're also kind of nervous about becoming parents and the additional things that they have to deal with and worry about. And these two people help each other work through some of the issues and things that they've gone through and they dealt with in their past, and get through things in their own head and lean on each other. Our heroine is very independent. She does not like having to have people help her. So she definitely is learning to let Beau help her, learning to let Beau in. And Beau is very patient and understanding. Journey of working through things together before they have their baby. So we don't get to see that in the book. We don't get to see them have the baby or anything like that, but we get to see them work through some things and work on themselves together before the baby comes. So I love this book so much. It means so much to me. It's not for everybody, and I know that it's so hyped and popular, but it's definitely not for everybody. This is just focused on the romance between these two, their development individually and their development romantically. I still think about Win and Beau all the time, and this is also the perfect fall read. Anyway, I love this book. I talked a lot about it in my last video, but I just kind of want to focus more on why I love this book so much. Okay, the next book, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Paulson. So again, we've already talked about this book, but I really want to reread it. Like, after talking about it, I really want to reread it, especially because I think this would be a good one to read in the fall time. Just a little brief summary of the book. We're following Clementine. Clementine's aunt has passed away. She's really had a hard time these last 6 months dealing with the death of her aunt. It was very unexpected. Her aunt committed suicide, and so she's really struggling with the effects of this. Her aunt was a very important person in her life. She was very close to her aunt. Her aunt always just taught her to live her life and just be free and things like that. And so she's definitely really struggling and with coming to terms with this. So she's really just focusing on her job, focusing on work, focusing on things that she can control. So she ends up moving into her aunt's house, and when she's there, she notices that there's a guy in the apartment. And basically we find out that this man lives 7 years in the past. So when she's in the apartment, essentially, she's 7 years in the past. When she leaves the apartment, she is in present day, and so it's 7 years in the future. So that concept was so interesting to me. I love this book so much. It's just beautiful writing, and you're just sucked into the story right away. And the way that this author is able to tackle such serious topics in her book without it feeling so depressing and gloomy, I just thought that was so well done as well. Everything about this book is perfection, like literal perfection. This is like one of my favorite books ever. I think that she writes, like, she is an auto-buy author for me now. So next is Something Wild and Beautiful by Anita Kelly. So again, I've talked about this book so much, but I really enjoyed this book, and it was one that was a surprise read for me. I just really wasn't expecting to read this one, but after hearing some people who I trust review this book and really enjoy it, I had to also read it, and I'm so glad that I did. I love to read about two people helping each other heal and grow together, or like hiking the PCT together. That's where they meet, and they end up helping each other out on the hike, but also helping each other out through what they're going through in their lives. So it's just so beautiful. I definitely will be reading more from this author because this is my first book by them, and I really enjoyed it. This is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. Again, I talked about this one already, but this book, I mean, I've been wanting to read this book for a while, but it's so hyped. I was so nervous. Like, what if I don't like it? What if I don't connect with it in the way that other people did? And I also was nervous to read this because I was concerned that Dean and Cora were kind of going to trauma bond, and that I wasn't really going to really believe in their relationship. And I was able to stay away from spoilers. Like, anytime I heard anyone talk about this book, I would just ignore it, kind of fast forward the video or whatever. And I was just surprised by what happened in this book. Like, I talked about this in my last video, but I really liked how we don't stay with them in captivity too long. We get to really see the after effects of what Dean and Cora have gone through, and I really liked that, just to kind of dive into their trauma and how what they went through really affected them individually and then together at the same time. And it's just very complicated and very messy, and their love is forbidden, and they really need each other, but like they can't, and they have to stop, but they just can't stop wanting each other, not only because of what they've gone through, but maybe this is how it's always been between them. I loved it. I really did believe in their love and in their connection that they did have. Even without what happened to them, I really did believe it and understand what they had together. And it wasn't just trauma bonding. So I love this. I think that this is like, I haven't read a lot of dark romances. I definitely want to dive more into dark romances, but this is the ideal dark romance. And I just don't know if I'll find any like this, because this is like a favorite dark romance. Like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And this was just a perfect book. Like, the perfect book does exist, and it is still beating. I can't wait to read Tabitha's story. I'm literally so excited. Comes out next month. I think that one is going to be amazing and epic. So we have Make You Mine by Laura Pavlov. So this is the third book in her Honey Mountain series. So what's interesting is I tried to read the first book in her newest series first. Didn't really love it. There's like something, there's a reason why. It's just something in that book that I don't really like, and I don't really care how anyone else tries to do it. I just don't really see myself liking it. And so I read the second book in her newest series, which is her Cottonwood Cove series. And then I went back and I read her Honey Mountain series. And I have just fallen in love with Laura Pavlov's writing. Her books are just so cozy and comforting. She's like a new comfort author for me. A lot of her books are on audio, so that's just really nice as well. But Make You Mine is my favorite in the Honey Mountain series. So far, I have one more book to read, so we'll see. But I loved this one so much, and I kind of had a feeling I would. It's single dad and a nanny romance, which, I don't know. I just love that combination. Like, I have yet to read a single dad and nanny romance that I haven't loved. Do they exist? Not for me, because I love them every single time. They're gonna hit every single time. And this one was just so good. We have our heroine who has just graduated college, and she actually wants to be an author. She wants to be a writer, and she really doesn't want to move back home. She just really kind of needs like her independence and space. Our hero, he is a single dad. He's also a firefighter. Yes, I don't know. I need more firefighter heroes. I don't know. They're hot. I don't know. I don't make rules. It's just, it is what it is. Anyway, he is a family friend. He actually works with her dad. Definitely struggling. He needs some help. He needs someone he can trust to help him take care of his kids, look after his kids. Like, mom is not involved in their life. She has definitely not been dependable, and she's left not too long ago, and she hasn't come back. So he's really just taking care of his kids on his own. And she hears about this, and she's like, why don't you let me help you take care of your kids? Because why don't you let me watch over them? And it's great because he knows her, he trusts her. Like I said, he's like a friend of the family. He works for her dad, so he knows her very well, and he knows he can trust her. So she ends up working for him. Now they have chemistry. Like, from the very beginning, you're just like, oh wow, this is not gonna last too long. But this book actually has baby mama drama. This has some ex drama. And I don't usually like that, but I think this was really well done. It just made sense because our hero, he definitely tries to fight this for multiple reasons. Like, he works with her dad, and, you know, he's her kid's nanny, but also she's young. You know, she just graduated college, and he's like older than her. So we do have like an age gap romance. And he is like, you know, I just don't see how this can work. Like, I'm so focused on being a dad. And, you know, that's where all his focus goes. And then, you know, he doesn't want her to have to like settle down so young. She has so much life to live and things like that. And so he just doesn't really see how this would work, and he doesn't want to do that to her. So he's really trying to fight the feelings, but she's like, no, I want this. I've never wanted anything more. So we have that tension, and, you know, when they finally give in comes the ex. And so I really liked that. It was very well done in this book, and it just, in my opinion, made sense to the fears and the concerns that our hero had in the first place. It was really good, and I definitely am a huge fan of Laura Pavlov's books now. So next we have Offside by Avery Keelan. Just like everyone else, I have been in my hockey era this year, and Offside has to be one of my favorite hockey romances that I've read. I know Tori and also McKay really liked this book, so I was excited to read it, and I really liked it. I saw that it was on audio. I jumped on it, and this book was so good. Honestly, this gave me vibes, not just the deal, it just gave me El Kennedy vibes from her hockey series, which is the first hockey romance series that I ever read, and it just brought me back there. I don't know, this just gave me all the feels. It felt very nostalgic, and it just reminded me why I love hockey romances so much. This really fun college romance. I don't even read college romances anymore. Like, I'm so far removed from them, but this one, I don't know what it was about this one. This one was a good one. In this book, we're following Bailey. So Bailey is dating a hockey player. He's like one of the best hockey players on their team, and she has mutual friends, and they're dating hockey players. So, and then also her brother plays on the same team. Her boyfriend dumps her like on her 21st birthday, and her friends are like shutting her out. Like, they're more so spending time with like her ex and stuff like that, and she's just kind of being shut out. She basically ends up hooking up with her ex's rival, Chase, her ex's biggest competition, like biggest threat, and she ends up falling for Chase. And I don't know, I loved it. I just had so much fun with this book, and I just enjoyed Chase so much. Like, he was just such a good hero. I just really felt for Bailey. I felt really bad for her, for like everyone giving her, just Xing her out, and then they gave her such a hard time when she started dating Chase. So I just felt so bad for her, and I just really liked how Chase was just so sweet to her, so kind to her. Like, they genuinely have like built this friendship, and it turns obviously into something more than that. Not only is our hero really romantic and sweet and just treats her so well in the way that she deserves to be treated, but these two actually communicate. Like, what? A romance book where people are actually communicating. Read Shut Out, which is the second book in this series, very soon. I really loved every minute with these characters, with Chase and Bailey. And if you haven't read this book and you're in your hockey romance era, you definitely should pick it up. I have Torn by Carrie and Cole. So everyone has read this book except for me. I've been hearing about this book for years, and I just had to pick it up this year. How emotional this book was. I actually really do feel like these two are meant to be together. I'm assuming a lot of people know what this book is about, but basically our heroine falls in love with her uncle-like figure in her life. The hero is best friends with her dad. They've basically grown up together. These two something ends up happening between them, not sexually, but there's something that happens between them, and they don't really act on anything else. But then when she's 18, things definitely get heated up between them. She definitely goes for it. Like, she's like, I can't let this pass. Like, it's always been you. And our hero definitely has a hard time keeping away from her. He definitely tries to fight his feelings for her, but their connection is just so strong. Like, it's always been them two, even though before it was harmless and sweet. Now it's something romantic and tons of chemistry, and it's just on fire. I just felt like these two were meant to be together. Read more from Carrie and Cole, and I finally read Torn, and I loved it. Next we have On the Shore by Laura Pavlov. Another Laura book, because Laura is just so good. Like, comforting, cozy romances. Following Brinkley. Brinkley is a reporter, and basically she gets fired because this NFL player felt like she took things too far. Like, she ended up following him into the bathroom, and he just felt like she took things too far, and she actually got fired from her job because of it. She's back home in Cottonwood Cove for the summer, and these two actually end up seeing each other. He thinks that Brinkley is stalking him. So this was so funny. When he sees her, he's like, you're stalking me. And that was such a funny scene. But he actually feels bad when he finds out that Brinkley lost his job because of him. So he ends up kind of telling her like, hey, I'm actually going to be making a next move in my career and I will love for you to get the first scoop about it. And so she ends up shadowing him, like working with him, writing a story about him, about where he's going to, which team he's going to be going to next year in the next season. So this will definitely help her, again, be able to get back to doing what she loves, and it's his way of making up for getting her fired. So then we have forced proximity. I love forced proximity. It's just so good. But I think what I love the most about this is just seeing them spend so much time together and they build this friendship that is so great. I really just like the little friendship and connection that they build, and it just very like flawlessly turns into them falling in love with each other. Now, our hero is pretty much crazy about Brinkley. Like, he falls in love with her quickly and fast. First, he's not easy for her to interview. He definitely is very closed off, makes it hard for her too. But once he really starts feeling comfortable with her, he just starts opening up and he ends up falling first. And the banter is great. The steam is great in this book. Laura Pavlov definitely writes some steamy romances. So I'm very excited for Before the Sunset. And just so far, this series is just really fun. But we have The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. So this book, love me some Ryan Shea. Like, there's a reason why everyone is so obsessed with this book. And it's both of these characters. We love Ryan and we love Indy. But Ryan is just literally such a dream. Like, the way that he treats Indy is just beautiful and amazing. And I just really love Indy and Ryan so much. Like, their story has just stayed with me so much. And I just really liked seeing these two break down each other's walls, and both of them feel very comfortable and confident with one another. You know, Ryan is very closed off from Indy, and he's very closed off from everybody, and she definitely his layers and see why that is. And Indy is she's not used to being by herself. She's always had a boyfriend and a group of friends, and now for the first time she has to be more independent, and Ryan definitely encourages her to come into her own as a person. I love seeing Indy come into her own, and I love seeing Ryan feel comfortable and safe opening up with someone other than his sister. This book is just perfect. Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop, which again we've talked about. Now, if you like Ryan Shea, if you like Ryan from The Right Move, then you will love Rome. I'm telling you right now, you need to read this book if you like Ryan from The Right Move, because these two give me the same vibes. They both just like know how a woman should be treated, and they're both very protective of their women and just think that their women give too much to other people and not to themselves. And so these two are like top book boyfriends. Rome and Janelle have such a beautiful romance. Get more books in this world because the friend group is so interesting, and there's a lot of things that were set up in here. All right, well, that's it. I definitely have more books that I rated 5 stars, but I've talked about a lot of them already. I just wanted to include some top ones and some books that I have not talked about and just quickly go through them. Some of the books that you gave 5 stars this summer. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.